Getting transferred from prison to prison was usually a good experience, unless obviously you were getting sent up a level because you got in trouble, like I had already done one time. But this time I was going to a lower level. I was going to a level 3, and I was happy. I was not taking the approach that I did when I got sent to the level 2 and having a chip on my shoulder because I was coming from a max level prison, thinking that that was going to mean something to people. Um, I was on my way to level 3, and I remember it's always the same, man. The bus rides or being in the back of the van, you're shackled. They got these joints, we call them the torture boxes, but it's this metal box that the handcuffs go in around your wrist, and you're literally locked like this. And then you're shackled to your waist, right? And then your waist to your ankles. Um, and then you may be shackled to somebody else or to other people depending upon the situation, and you're like that for hours. And if you've got to urinate, it doesn't matter. They're not pulling over and none of that. You do that on yourself, and we'll clean it up when we get there. That's why the seats are plastic, just like in prison. There's metal, steel, whatever, but they can clean them up easy. Guys would often soil themselves because they just couldn't hold it. It was the craziest thing because they want you to eat breakfast, which you are going to do. You're knowing you're going to, in order to get transferred, it's going to take 5-6 hours out your day because you got to go to the bullpen. And then while you're at the bullpen, you got to wait and hop on another bus because that was the transfer area at Powhatan to get sent to your actual prison. But guys would eat breakfast and you get shackled, and then you'd be trying to hold, yourself from having to go to the bathroom. And it was tough. It was things like that. It was the fact that while you're shackled and handcuffed, you're locked in the back of the van. And on the way to Powhatan, man, if anybody's ever been down there, when you go to that prison, there's this strip of, it's a one-way lane of street that goes directly over a body of water. There's no railing on the side or anything. Man, I always used to think, like, what if this thing goes over? They can't get me, so I'm going to drown. And whoever else is in here with me. And it's scary. It's certain anxieties that was just attached to being transported to different places, man, in prison. Everything about it. It's not like you could look out the windows and see freedom. The windows, you could stand up to look out them, but if you stood up, the COs would tell you, sit down. What are you doing? So went through the day. Like I said, 5-6 hours transfer. Got to the bullpen. That's when I found out I was going to Greensville Correctional Center. Greensville Correctional Center is known as the city. It has 3 different penitentiaries on one. So it's S1, S2, S3, and a whole. Each unit, S1, S2, S3, though separate, are encompassed by one large perimeter fence. It's gigantic. Each one of those units holds at least 1,000 men. Then you have the whole, and you also have death row. This would be the first camp that I was on that had death row on top of it all. I remember when I got there, it's almost like I walked into a big gigantic apartment complex in the hood, and I could just hear dudes screaming out the windows, because at the time you could open up the windows on the cells, and guys were screaming out and fishing stuff up from the windows. And I was like, yo, I'm in the projects, the prison project. That's how I felt. But here we go. Immediately I seen one of my people, man, that was up there with me, that I'd known from the jail, known from back home. He was on Sussex with me. He was here, but he was getting ready to get shook. But I seen him, and I'm glad I seen him because he was able to give me the rundown. By this time, I was in prison long enough, though, that I knew more than just him on the camp. Because when you're in prison long enough, people start to know you. You start to know people. So there's more familiar faces. You've gained your respect. You got your reputation. When you walk into a dorm, people already let people know who you are, if they being honest. Sometimes you'll have a hater. But here we go. I'm on Greensville Correctional Center, AK the city, Jarrett VA, and I see instantly a prison that is wilding. I see a place where it's out of control. It gave me the feel that it was just Sussex on a level 3. Like, it was just a bunch of angry, hostile, whatever dudes that was into whatever. But now they were able to be on the rec yard all day. And and beat each other up and all that. And I was back in the mix of it. And I had to figure out how to stay out of trouble on this camp. I had to figure out how to not get into anything on this camp. And let me tell you, I was there for a while. And it's very hard not to get into things when you're on a place like Greensville. A couple other fun facts about Greensville is, like I stated, they do executions there. I was there when, was it Malvo was executed. Was it Muhammad? I respect one of the individuals, one of the DC snipers. But not just his. I remember whenever there was an execution, I remember watching the death van rolling along the perimeter of the fence. It's a dark green avocado, just old. It's like a box truck, but you can tell what it's carrying when it comes back this direction. I would watch the families of the loved ones or maybe victims. I'm not sure, in the back of golf carts being escorted to the area where they would execute people. It was just a bad vibe. Those days, and I wanted to take the time out to speak on this before I go back in the story. Those days, it would just be just a weird, somber vibe on that institution. Police didn't mess with you. And ironically enough, the address is 901 Corrections Way. When you look at an aerial view, it's 3 crosses the buildings are built like. And when do they do the executions? At 901. That's crazy. But yeah, this would mark another new chapter. This would mark new opportunities, I guess. I would get put in 2B, I believe. It was 2B or 2C, which was like an intake pod there at Greensville. And that was wow, because the first thing I noticed in that intake pod was people were trying to get over. There was a lot of people that they were one way on where we were at on the higher levels, but now they were on a lower level. They were moving different. Some guys were in totally different, completely different cars and stuff. It was different, man. I would sit back and I was observing like I always do and listen to the conversation. And this camp was flooded with narcotics. It was all about getting money, and the gangs were deep. It was gangland. And you could see it when you hit the yard. I went on the yard the first day because I still had an opportunity to go to evening rec, and I was just walking the yard and just looking, man. And it was like there was small armies out there, and they weren't playing. The second day I was there, two of the cars got into it each other. And I remember I wasn't on the yard, but my cell partner at the time, he was like, yo, look out the window. And we looked out the window and we could see a group of guys. They were digging up pieces of metal that they had buried by the basketball court because they were about to put in work. It was that type of camp. It was that type of vibe. I knew I had to be on point. Within my second week there, somebody had been unalived. It was the Terror Dome, man. I was happy to be on a lower level, but it was not a place I necessarily wanted to be. But I had to survive this and get through it in order to get to a level 2, a level 1, etc. My freedom, which is always the catch-22. Because if I would have bucked, or what, I could have ended up getting sent back up to level 4 again. So this would be the mark or the beginning of my Greensville journey.